What's up guys, my name is Edwin and this is a complete crash course on voice AI in 2025. It will take you from a complete beginner to a professional in building these voice AI agents in a couple of hours, even if you've never used these tools before. Now, my name is Edwin and I am the co-founder of Legacy AI, and I've been running an AI agency offering conversational AI solutions, mainly chat and voice agents, to 10 plus different businesses. In this video, I will kind of take you through a little bit the background of voice AI and a deep dive into the main platforms to build this voice AI agent solutions, and I will have an analysis on when to use which platform, because we have so many different tools right now. So stick to the end of the video to know when to use which tool. But for now, enjoy and welcome to Voice AI. Okay, welcome to the Voice AI Masterclass. I'm really excited to, in the next few hours, trying to explain to you and introduce to you what voice AI is if it's your first time into coming into this technology, or even if you have been playing with, building different voice agents maybe on VAPI before. It's good to kind of establish and consolidate the knowledge level. So I will walk you through a lot of different platforms and take you like step by step how to set up this voice agents. Let's begin. So what the hell is voice AI, right? So voice AI is a type of conversational AI system where you can have a natural conversations over the phone, either over the phone or through web apps or mobile apps. Like, a good example of that is ChatGPT. Advanced voice mode is where you can talk to it over the internet, right? Over your laptop, for example. So it's a lot of back and forth dialogue in between the conversation between you, the human, and the AI system. And there are three components in any voice agents. It's really important that to get this right. The first one is speech to text, also known as the transcriber. This is the layer which actually turns what you speak, like human language, like what we speak, into text format, right? Into actually letters and words. This is the first component. Then it will pass through the brain to process and try to respond to what the user said, which is just our good old LLM. Think about, ChatGPT, which is GPT-4o, GPT-4.1, etc. This is the LLM that does the processing, and after the LLM responds, it then needs to speak to the human again, right? So it then goes through the text-to-speech model, something like 11 Labs, for example, which turns the output from the LLM into like a human-like sound, like speech, back to the user. And any voice agents will always use these three components. To give you an example, by the way, forgot to mention transcriber, something like DeepGram, Nova 2. These are, this is one of the pretty standard transcriber model that we'll be using when we build this kind of voice agents. And there are two different types of voice AI types. It's either inbound or outbound, right? Let's start with inbound. So an inbound voice caller, basically people call your number for your business. So it's basically handle any incoming calls for a business. And the use case could be something like, a customer support team where a customer has a question and they would call the customer support agent. The customer support AI agent is supposed to answer any questions or inquiries the user might have. And it can also do something like order checking, for example, if the user is kind of checking up on how their order is going, has it been shipped yet? So it can track something like order status and actually get back to the user. Or if it's like troubleshooting, for example, a telecom company, for example, always the same common questions like, my Wi-Fi stopped working, or things like that, right? And the voice agents will be able to actually answer questions based on the company's knowledge. It can also do something like call routing, so something like DTMF, which stands for dual tone multi-frequency. You don't need to know what that means. What that means is like, how when you're calling up, a bank, for example, it will always say like, if customer support, press 1, sales team, press 2, right? Something like that, right? This is what call routing is. You can use this voice agents to intelligently capture what the user said and route it to the appropriate human team in an organization. Another application is appointment booking, like something like a medical clinic or any dental clinic, right, etc. So what this can do is you can, when the person calls the business, it can then go ahead and check the availability and actually book a slot for the user or appointment booking. That's inbound voice caller. The other type is outbound voice caller, is where you call people up. The voice agents will call customers or prospects. A lot of the time is cold calling. When you have a new offer, you want to go through your CRM and actually calls people up to see if they're interested. They can do reminders and follow-ups. So, for example, if someone has been talking with the business but they kind of ghosted you, you can remind them or call them up just to follow up and be like, hey, have you had the time to think about that, right? Kind of like a sales call, but it's more like structured. And it's also good for engagement, obviously, and reactivation is where you have a bunch of leads sitting in your database that you haven't contacted them for a while. Is where you kind of reactivate your CRM and call them up and check in to see how they're doing, right? And hopefully that some of them will lead to more sales. So these are the two different types of voice callers, mostly within the voice AI space. And now you might be wondering, if you're a business owner seeing this, you're like, okay, why voice AI, right? So if there are a couple of different options in terms of how you can structure your, how you structure people who answer the phone, because that's a lot of the businesses needs to have people taking phone calls or making phone calls, right? The first option is having an in-house customer support agent who do the phone calling, right? Hourly rates depends on where you are, but on average it's like $18-25 US per hour. And the scalability is kind of limited because you need a lot of significant time and investment to actually hire and train new agents for peak periods, right? So if there's a huge demand with lots of call inquiries going on, right, you need to kind of train the human team what to say and what not to say, right? There's a huge chunk of SOPs that the customer support agent probably needs to read and actually follow through to actually learn all the different languages and what it should speak and how the call process should look like. So that takes a lot of time and resources to invest into training these human agents, right? And the availability is like 9 to 5, right? It's limited to the work hours, and also, but sometimes obviously human employee needs to take holidays, sometimes they be sick, so it's not going to be available always. Consistency is not necessarily consistent. You can try your best, it depends on training, but even the best workers have the bad days, right? Like sometimes we can only imagine maybe you're super energetic in the morning when you come into the office and picking up these calls and trying to answer customer questions. But by the end of the day, on your 100th, 99th call, on the 90th call, you're going to be exhausted, you're going to be tired. It's very difficult for a human to maintain the same conversational standard during your last call as your first call when you've been exhausted from taking these calls all day. So there could be a drop or fluctuations in your service and your conversational quality, and therefore that could be the difference between making sales and not, right? Because the customers have a good or bad conversational experience, right? And the second option is to outsource it, right? If you outsource it into East Asia countries such as India or Philippines, it usually costs around $7 to $16 an hour. It depends on how much, where it depends on the company, of course. If it's onshore, so in the US or Canada, typically around $20 an hour, right? In terms of scalability, it's more flexible, but it's not instant and can still involve lead time because you just need to talk to the people who actually manage the call centers, right? But there's still a little bit of back and forth, so it's not instantaneous. You have more control over, it's more flexible, than the in-house hires, but you still need to communicate with the providers. Availability, it can offer 24/7 coverage, but obviously it's going to be more expensive. It depends on the arrangement you have with the service provider. And in terms of consistency, again, it's the same problem, right? It's the best workers, best clothes, still have their bad days. And if you actually outsource it to somewhere offshore, the conversational experience might not be necessarily the best because there could be, if it's an English-speaking country, there could be some problem with certain pronunciations or certain accents that could be more difficult for people to understand, etc. Right? So there's a little different difficulties depending on what the business is, of course. The third option is to have voice AI, right? And for voice AI, is usually the one-time setup fee is around 4 figures, what I've seen around the market. Most of these agencies kind of offer this around this range. Maintenance is you can expect around $300, $500 per monthly, and usually includes the usage fee, of course, on the subscription fee of the different platforms. And that's it, right? The scalability is unlimited because once you've set it up, you can deploy it, because you can have a phone number and you can have concurrent calls they're basically different people calling the same number at the same time, right? And you can just set it up however you want, like in terms of outbound campaigns, etc. So scalability is really unlimited. Availability is 24/7, 365 days, like every day without overtime pay, without needing to overtime pay if you overwork. It's basically always going to be like available. It's consistency. It's going to be consistent service. If you do it properly, if you do it right, it's going to be consistently good. Hopefully, if you do it properly, to set up the brand persona, it's going to have the same conversational structure every single time. It's going to have the same conversational quality every single time because, well, AI doesn't get tired. It doesn't it's going to do exactly what you instruct it to do, right? So that's where the consistency comes from with these voice AI solutions. And now I've kind of covered through a little bit like to the background voice AI, but let's actually now dig deep into each platform and actually show you how to build these voice agents as a beginner. So I'll see you in VAPI. So let's start with VAPI. VAPI, if you didn't know, is one of the most popular platforms for designing and making these voice AI agents. So this is probably the first platform that you should not necessarily master, but at least learn the basics, learn the fundamentals, like have a feel about the platform, because it's probably one of the most beginner-friendly platforms to start building these voice AI agents. So the first thing you want to do is head to vapi.ai and you will want to sign up and create a new account. But since I've already got an account, I'm just going to simply click on Open Dashboard. And now it will take us to the VAPI homepage. Now within the VAPI homepage, you can see that you basically get a bunch of dashboard on your main page. You've got, you can track metrics like number of calls, average duration, total calls, average calls, and your call success rates as well. But let's actually head on how to actually make this voice assistant in VAPI. Within VAPI, there are two main ways you can build these voice agents. The first way is through single prompt assistant, and the second way is through multi-prompt workflow. So let's start by clicking on single prompt assistant. And now we will create a new interface for single prompt assistant. The first thing you do is you click on assistant and give it a new name. Let's call it demo for now. And you've got a bunch of different templates that you can try out within VAPI, but for now we can just click on blank template and create one together. So after you select blank template, click on create assistant. And now you would have created a single prompter assistant within VAPI. So what does it mean by single prompt? Well, by the name it suggests basically we are using one giant, very detailed prompt in order to control the conversational flow and program the agent. When I said program, it literally means setting up the instructions, what it should do, what tools it should call, how the conversational flow is going to go in one single system prompt. Now, as you can probably see, if we're just using one prompt to control the entire agent, it's not going to be the best in terms of complexity, or it's not going to build you the most complex production ready voice agent, right? It's going to what's it's going to do for single prompt assistant. Best use case is usually something very simple, like very simple customer support agent, question answer, answering FAQs, or very simple appointment booking agent, which I'm going to show you in this demo. So let's assume now in this demo that we're going to create a inbound voice caller for a medical clinic. So what I mean by that is basically when people, when they want to book an appointment or they want to inquire something for a medical clinic, it's going to call that specific number. So let's actually go ahead, and because for this series of videos, I didn't want you to just sit down and look at me writing prompts for 5 hours. So what I've gone ahead is actually I've written the prompts beforehand, and I'm just going to copy into VAPI and I'll break it down for you so you can understand how you can create your own prompt. So I'm just going to quickly copy this, which I've created. So let's have a look. So in every of this system prompt for these kind of voice agents, you always want to begin with a persona. So you would say you're Emma, an AI voice assistant at Dr. Evan Medical Clinic. You're responsible for handling patient communications, for your professional. So try to give a persona, a personality to the voice agents. And the next thing you should put on the prompt is tasks. So you need to say to the agent what your primary task is. Your primary task is to maintain a professional, empathetic, clear conversation with patient, answer the administration questions, and schedule appointments requested. So this is just some client information. By the way, this is just some information about clinics, which can be done by having a knowledge base, which I will explain in a bit. But for now, let's just put every information that we need for the clinics in this prompt. So you've got some information. We don't need to worry about too much about the details. For the appointments, this is important because we also want the agent to be able to book the appointments. So the way that you do that is basically feeding in what's the available time and available dates for the clinics. The current date is date. So this is actually a built-in VAPI variable. This tells VAPI what today's date is, and this tells VAPI what today's time is. Because if a customer say, I want to book an appointment next Tuesday, it's not going to understand like what today's date is, right? And so therefore it can't work out what next Tuesday actually means. But by feeding VAPI these variables, VAPI now has the context of what does next Wednesday means, right? If today is, let's say, 27th of June, then next Wednesday should be 2nd of July. Maybe wrong on that, but you get the idea. You then give it a bunch of appointment creation instructions. So you ask for the patient's full name, the day of the appointment, the time of the appointment, the reason for the visit, etc. So you are instructing the agent how we should go ahead and actually create this kind of flow on how to schedule the different appointments, right? Ending the call, etc. So I use the end call function to end the call, which I'll explain in a bit. You also set some rules and limitations, right? So some rules and limitations that a medical clinic traditionally have. And now you would just click update and you will have your system prompt. Congratulations, you have basically created the bulk of your first voice agent. And from here, it's your first message. As you can see, it's basically the first message that the system will say. So you can just say something like, hi, thanks for calling the clinic name, which is Dr. Eva's Medical Clinic. Thanks for calling. My name is Emma. How can I help you today? Right, so this is the first message that when you call the agent, it was going to say. And the first message mode is you can either the assistant speaks first, so the voice agent speaks first, the assistant wait for the user to say something, or the assistant speaks with model generator as well. Usually we go with the assistant speaks first. And this is where you can choose the LLM, the model. So for now, let's choose with OpenAI. And the model, we usually go with GPT-4 all cluster. You can experiment with GPT-4.1 if you want, but for now, let's just stick with GPT-4 all cluster. Now files. Remember when I said you can include the details or the information about the clinics in the knowledge base? Well, this is actually how you did it. By actually adding a new file, and you can just create your own PDF files within the select files. And you can just select your tokens on here, and you can select your temperature. So what temperature means is basically to control the randomness of the output. If you set it higher, it will be more random. If you set it lower, it will be more deterministic, right? So you can set it to wherever you want. So within VAPI, you can set it to 0 or 2. So usually it's between 0 and 1, but within VAPI, you can set it between 0 and 2. But you just leave it for 0.5 for now. This usually does the trick. Max tokens. So max tokens is actually the maximum number of tokens, i.e. words, but not really words, because how voice AI agents work is actually by reading the tokens, because the LLM model doesn't actually read like English letters, right? What it does is actually every like LLM, they actually have a model to actually decipher this kind of words, this kind of English letters into tokens. So tokens could be a letter, could be a word. It depends on the specific LLM model. And the max number of tokens means the maximum number of tokens that the voice agent can generate each turn of the conversation. not in total, but each turn of conversations. And 250 is usually a default choice, which is good enough. You can experiment with different max tokens depending on the use case. And now within the voice tab, this is where we can configure the voice model. This is where we can configure the text-to-speech model. Because remember when we talked about voice agents fundamentals earlier, we have 3 components, right? There's speech-to-text, where we translate what the user is speaking into text so the LLM can process the text information, and text-to-speech, where we turn it back to a voice data back to the user using the text-to-speech model. This is where we can configure the text-to-speech model. For now, I just like using 11 Labs. It's pretty standard across the industry, and you can just pick whatever voice you like. I will just stick with Zara for now, and you can choose your own 11 Labs model depending on your use case, right? And you have transcriber. Within transcriber, you have your own. You can select your own speech-to-text model. This is where you translate what the user is saying to text so the LLM can understand. Now, within the transcriber, the industry standard is just DeepGram. Nova 2 is a pretty standard setup. I wouldn't change anything from here. And background noising enabled. So if you enable this, you will actually filter background noise when the user is talking, which makes the conversation experience better. We usually would just turn it on. And now we will go to tools. So tools within VAPI, as you can see, is what enable these voice agents to perform actions during calls. So you can create different tools. The way that you would do that within VAPI is if you click on this gear button, this is tools. So tools are basically different actions that the voice agent can take to perform real life actions. For example, you can create your own function. You can have an end call tool. You can have a transfer call. You can send an API request. You can send a text message. You can send a Slack message. You can do something with Google Sheets. You can book appointments with Google Calendar, which we're going to show you in a bit. You can connect it to Go High Level, etc. So you have all these different tools that allows the voice agents to do very specific actions. And if you go back to the assistants, I didn't save the message. This is very important. That is why every time you should click publish to save the prompt. So I'm just going to copy back here and just say, hi, this is welcome to, thanks for calling. Oops. Thanks for calling the doctor clinic. How can I help you today? It's very important that you click publish in order to save the assistant. And yeah, so let me just quickly change it back. Sorry for anyone who's following this and didn't save their voice agents. Now you know to always remember saving your voice agents. Yeah, so with tools. For now, let's just select the transfer call to, which actually what that allows you to do is if it requests a human, it will actually call a human agent in the loop to answer the call. So instead of an AI agent, it will be an actual human who will be answering the call. You can now select your own predefined functions and your own custom functions, but I wouldn't recommend that. I would recommend just working with tools for now. Analysis. Now this is important. Analysis is actually where we can do any post-call analysis, because every time after a call, ideally you want to actually log down what the call results actually look like. So as an example, after the call, you want to analyze what the user has said, like a summary of the call. So it helps the business's team to actually analyze what's so special, like how can we help that customer more, right? So the way that we do that is actually through analysis. So you can ask VAPI to generate a summary of the call if you want. Success evaluation to see if the call was successful. To be honest, like normally we don't use this that often. The one that we do use though is structured data. So structured data is actually where we extract the structured data from call conversations. So for example, if you want to extract the phone number, or if you want to extract the name of the customers, email of the customers, this is actually where you will prompt the agent to actually extract those informations. And the way that you do that is actually click on add property, and now you can just create your variable. So for example, if I want name, then it will just, description will be the full name of the user. So this will give the LLM the context to actually, okay, I actually need to capture now the name of the user, right? etc. And with all the information that you need to capture from the voice agents. And privacy, so for medical clinics, in our use case, we probably should turn on HIPAA compliance, which is, you don't need to worry too much what that means, but it's basically just a compliance issues that widely used within the medical industry. You should turn that on if you're using this, you have building these agents in the medical industry. And yeah, so the rest, to be honest, you don't have to worry too much. Like, you can play with it, but don't worry too much. Like, the start speaking plan, just like when the assistant should start talking, there's just different things you can tweak to make the conversational experience a little bit better. Because an example is like wait seconds, like how long the assistant needs to wait before speaking. You can, right now it needs to set to 0.4 seconds. You can also change things like on punctuation seconds, which is the minimum seconds to wait after transcription ending with punctuation. So usually when a sentence ends, for example, if I say, hi, my name is Edwin, there's a full stop after Edwin, right? So this is where the sentence ends, right? So where the transcription to the sentence is end. This is saying how many seconds the VAPI should wait before like transcribing to the next sentence, because we're stopping, right? Hi, my name is Edwin, right? That's the one sentence, right? So how many seconds should we wait after the punctuation? No punctuation seconds is minimum seconds to wait after the transcription ending without punctuation. Because sometimes if you imagine the situations where we are actually like, just talking normally, but then like this, I'm thinking mid-sentence, there's no punctuation. So like, how many seconds should I wait? The VAPI should wait for me to basically think my thoughts, right? So if you want it to be higher, then you would just set this number to a little bit higher. You can play around with it to see what fits you for your use case. Now, the one where I want to talk about is messaging. So messaging is actually where you can set a server URL where you can pass the information when the call ends. This is where you can pass the information and save the call results to something else. So as an example, you can save it through something like an NAN workflow, which actually can save the log results, which I'm going to show you in this demo. So the things that you would do is you head up to nan.io. You sign into, you would need to set up an NAN account for this. And you would just click on VAPI. This is the workflow that I created. So what this workflow does is, if you set up a webhook, right? If I literally just copy the webhook URL, paste it within the server URL, and this is basically saying what kind of messages we need to pass to the VAPI demo. Now, I've already gone ahead and have a spreadsheet which is logging the end call result, which is logging the call ID, which actually, let me just kind of show you after the demo. But then just to show you an idea, is like, I'm logging the call ID, I'm logging the call time, the time it takes for the call, I'm logging the call duration, how long it takes like for the call, the cost of the call, the end reason, why does the call end? Is it because the customer hangs up, or is it because the conversation actually ends naturally? Call summary, the summary of the call, like what happens, right? So you can log all these call results into Google Sheets, and you can check if there was an appointment. This filter basically checks if there's an appointment. If there isn't an appointment, log the appointment detailed in the Google Sheet. So you can log the name, you can log the date of the appointment, the time of the appointment, and also the reason of the appointment. So the reason why the customer would like to book the appointment, right? So this actually comes into what I've told you earlier, which is through the structured data, if you have been paying attention, exactly here. You will basically, from here, these are basically what the messages, what data you're sending to the Google Sheets. For now, I will just actually select everything. I'll just keep one thing in here just to show you guys, like, basically these are the messages that we send to client SDK. So the client messages, it's not really what we want. We want the server messages. So this includes things like the end of call report, etc. But for now, I'm just going to deselect everything and just select end of call report for now. And yeah, this is pretty much all the configurations that you need to know for VAPI. So I'm just gonna go ahead and actually add in all the different fields that I need in order to log the appointment schedule. Okay, so I've gone ahead and actually put down all the different variables. So I put down the reason, which is essentially the reason why the customer wants to schedule an appointment, usually due to medical issues or symptoms. Appointment is a Boolean, so it's either true or false. So what this means is true if there was an appointment request for the user, otherwise false. So if false means that the customer is just asking questions, but they don't want to book an appointment. Appointment date and the description, the dates of the appointment in the format of year, month, date, right? The appointment name, which is the name of the person requesting the appointment. So let's say Tom Smith. Appointment time, the time of the appointment, 24-hour format, for example, 1700, right? And I've just added in a small prompt in the structured data. So basically saying you're given the transcript of call and the system prompt of the AI assistant, extract the list of parameters, which are these are the list of parameters. And I'm just feeding in VAPI once again, the context of the current date and the current time, so it knows, so it won't make mistakes when booking appointments. So let me actually go ahead and test this out. So the way to test in VAPI is you just click on talk to your assistant.
Hey, thanks for calling Dr. Eva Rostova's clinic. This is Emma speaking. How can I help you?
Hey, what do you guys do?
We offer general practice and family medicine services. Common reasons for visits include the annual physicals, checkups, cold or flu symptoms, follow-up appointments, prescription refills, vaccinations, and new patient consultations. Is there anything specific you'd like assistance with?
Yeah, so I would like to book an appointment.
Certainly, I can assist with that. May I have your full name, please?
Yeah, it's Tom Smith.
Thank you, Tom. On what day would you like to schedule the appointment?
How about next Wednesday?
Next Wednesday is the 2nd of July. What time would you like to come in? Our available hours are between 9 a.m. and 4 p.m.
Let's say like 1 p.m.
Got it. And what is the reason for your visit?
Well, I've got a sore knee. Just want to get it checked out. Like a sore knee? Yeah.
Thank you for sharing. I'll note this as a general consultation for a soaring knee. Let me confirm the details. I have an appointment for Tom Smith on the 2nd of July at 1 p.m. for a general consultation. Is all of that correct?
That's correct.
Your appointment is now confirmed. Please remember to bring your ID and insurance card. We look forward to seeing you. Is there anything else I can assist you with?
No, thank you. Bye. So as you can see, like it's okay. Like it's not there's a lot of things that we can improve. As you can see, like for this kind of single prompter agent, the appointment is not necessarily the best experience. Of course, we can change the prompts a little bit better and a lot more back and forth, like for example checking the availability of a calendar to make sure that the slot is actually free from the business side of things, from the clinic side of things. We can do that within this prompt, but it's going to make this more complicated and there's more room for error within this single prompt agent. So what we're going to show you next is actually a multi-workflow assistant within VAPI, which allows you to build more advanced agents by having more back and forth with the customer, and you have more controlled logic within VAPI. So the way that we actually use workflow within VAPI is if you go on the left hand side of the bar, and if you actually expand on it, you can click on workflow. And within workflow is actually a brand new VAPI feature that just got out of beta, I think 3 days ago. By the time you're watching this video, maybe it's 1 week. But it's basically giving you a lot more structure, similar to retail and voice flow if you're familiar with these platforms. If you're not, don't worry, we're going to go over this in the later stage. But for now, just think of it like a more structured way to control the different conversations. So the way that you would do that is literally go on and create workflow. Now there are some amazing templates that are being done within the VAPI side, so kudos to them. There's the lead qualification agent. If you're new to this, I highly encourage you to go through the template, especially as well the appointment scheduling one. It's quite a very good template for you to kind of understand how different workflows work together. But for now, let's actually have a deep dive into the lead qualification agent, just to kind of give you guys an idea of what it's going to look like. So it's actually the UI UX is really good on the side here. But anyway, so within here you can see there's a start node. Every VAPI workflow always starts with a start node. This is where the conversation will begin. And you can see all the nodes within here. You can add a conversation node, which is, as you know, where conversation happen. You can have an API request node. So this will literally just, let me just move it out of the way. So this will just actually send an API request, post an API request, or any API request to, for any tool calling. But for now, let's just delete that. Let me just quickly delete. And you also have transfer call node, which transfer call to human, and the call to, which basically means activate tool calling, which I'm going to show you in a little bit more detailed. So within this start node, you can have your first message. So for example, in this template, it basically say, hello, this is Morgan. So how you want the assistant to speak first, right? It's very similar to the single prompter agent. Now, within each conversational node, you can actually have its own prompt. This is the beauty, because imagine you have like a much more complicated use case. You can have multiple different conversational nodes, and within each conversational node, you can have its own prompt, making these kind of each prompt within each specific node only geared specifically for the actions or the specific conversational logic you want within each node. So it makes the control of the entire conversation much better. You also have the option to toggle the global node. If you turn on global node, it's going to make this node globally accessible. So you can enter condition within here. So if you enter any conditions here and you turn on the global node, whenever this condition happens, so let's say user is confused. So whenever the user is confused, it will always goes back to introduction node, which is not necessarily what we want. So we're just going to turn it off, but it's an option. Model settings is where you can set the models. So you can choose different LLM providers. OpenAI, we'll just stick with OpenAI, and GPT-4. Again, very, very similar to the single prompter settings. You got the text-to-speech engine, which you can select 11 labs as a standard, and you can just choose the different settings of the voice models from here. Same with the transcribe settings, speech-to-text, deep grammar over 2, again, the free sentence setup, so we don't need to really change that much. And you've got the extract variables. Now, this is important. Basically, if you turn on the add variables, you can now actually ask the LLM within this node to extract these specific variables that you want, right? So you can add the variable here. And within each node, there are something called transitions. Transition or a condition. A condition means that if this happens, then the workflow will transfer from this node to another node. So in this case, it's basically saying that the user said they're too busy right now, but seems potentially interested. So basically, if the user say that, oh, I'm too busy, but I could be interested, then what happens is VAPI will know to transfer from this node into this reschedule call node, right? Which is if they're too busy now, say, I understand you've pressed for time, would it be better to schedule a specific time for us to talk? I'll be happy to follow up when time is better, right? So you can assign different logical conditions. If X happens, go to this node. If Y happens, goes to another node, right? So this is what allows this logical branching of the different of a workflow essentially. And this is just a giant workflow for the late qualification agent. So let's actually build one using our medical clinic use case by going create workflow, solve a blank workflow. Now with the start node, what we're going to do is we're going to do something very similar to what we've done with a single prompt agent, but now it's more divided. Again, what I've gone ahead is I've created all these different prompts for different nodes, so you don't just sit there and watch me prompting for 5 hours. So let me just go ahead and copy the prompt that I've already written. Actually, before I do that, that's actually the incorrect one. The reason why is because there's actually something I forgot to mention, which is the global prompt. This is actually where this goes. So the global prompt, it actually defines your assistant core personality across all conversation nodes. So think of this like a specific node prompt, but then the global prompt is what gives a general instructions across the entire conversational workflow. It's like a standard, it's like a general standard for the entire workflow. So What you usually include in the global prompt, as you can see here, is the identity and purpose. So basically saying that you're Emma, the AI voice assistant for Dr. Ever Medical Clinic. Your purpose, right, is to provide professional, empathetic, efficient patient support. You handle admin questions and schedule appointments. You're not a medical professional, right? And the second part of the prompt is core persona and tone, right? So, for example, how we should act. So professional, you know your language is always clear, cautious, and respectful. Empathetic, you're patient in understanding of the caller's needs. Efficient, your response is concise and to the point. Your short, simple sentences, language and conversational guidelines. One question at a time. Never ask more than one question in a single term. Wait for a response before proceeding, and use conversational language like certainly, okay, let's see. Avoid robotic or overly formal phrasing. Instead of I'll be happy to, simply say I can do that, right? So basically how you talk normally and make it sound human, this is where you put it in. And you have some critical rules and boundaries like no medical advice, right? It's really crucial, especially if you're working in a medical niche. Like you cannot provide any medical advice, diagnosis, or interpretation of symptoms. Patient describing a medical emergency. Your first and only response must be if this is a medical emergency, please hang up and dial 911, right? This is extremely important for compliance issues, etc. So this is like the global prompt where the entire system of the flow will have this prompt in mind, and you can configure global voice. So I'll just click on 11 labs for Sarah for now. And for variables, very similar to the extract variables in the node, but this is like a global variable where each node has access to, for example, now, which is the current date and time, dates, the current date, time, the current time, month, year, etc. Right? These are the global variables that are available in every node. So now we have the start node. So let's go ahead and actually fill those in. So for the prompt, I've actually gone ahead and actually wrote down the prompt for. So let me just kind of copy paste the prompt that I've already written, so you don't just sit here and watch me again write prompts for 5 hours. So let me go ahead and do that. So this is the prompt for the welcoming message. It should be, hi there, welcome to Dr. Eva Robotis Medical Clinic. How can I help you today? Right. And there's an option to make this a global node. If this is enabled, then every other node can actually enter to this node by entering a condition. So I'll make this more clear actually when we have more nodes. From here, you can click on plus and you can add another node. Now, let's say we have conversational node, right? So let's say if the user, for the condition is if the user wants to book an appointment. So if the users say like they want to book an appointment, then it would transition from this node to this conversation node, right? And very similarly, you can do the same thing with another conversation node, and you basically say if the user has a question about the clinic or services, right? So whenever the user has a question, then it goes to this node. Now, what I said about global node is that you can actually toggle the settings and actually enable this global node. When you turn this on, that means that every other node can actually go to this node with a specific condition. So let's say when the user has a question, right? So if they're booking the appointment and they have a question about the services or the clinic, they can always jump from this node to this node, essentially. And from here, from each node, by the way, you can actually toggle on this little arrow thing, and you can see the cost for each component. So the transcriber to speech to text cost is $0.01, LLM is cost $0.02, text to speech cost $0.01, and the hosting cost from VAPI cost $0.05. So you can see how much this node, on average, costs for each node. So you can do some latency analysis and you can do some cost analysis as well. And you can see the latency from here. But that's a side note. Now let's actually go ahead and fill these prompts in. First of all, we have the appointment node, which is when the user actually wants to book an appointment, they are going to go ahead. This node is going to go ahead and actually capture the reason for the visit, usually a medical reason, right? And from here, you can configure the LLM model. I will just stick with GPT-4o, and I'll just change the settings to 11 labs. The transcriber settings stick with deep RAM, and extract variables. From here, I'm just going to extract a variable which is called reason which is the reason why the user booked an appointment. Usually right? So I'm just gonna, so this note is gonna extract the variable reason. Oh, it's in the wrong prompt. Oh yeah, it's in the wrong prompt, sorry. I can quickly do this. Let me fix this. Just delete that. Delete that. And now we can just... The disadvantage about VAPI is you can't control which node you can connect. I can't connect to this node, for example. I have to click here and click on conversational node again, which is really annoying. I should have just changed the condition, to be honest. That would be probably easier. But so let me just copy this, copy this, and just delete that. And let me just say, you don't need the first message for this. Just going to change the settings. Just going to change the settings here. Extract the variable. Let me type this again. Why the user right? And the condition just say if the user wants to book an appointment. Right, same thing from here. I can just add another conversational node from here. There we go, and we'll just say the condition if the user has a question about the clinic or services. And from here, I'm just going to copy it in the prompt for this specific node. Which is just basically you give the goal. Basically, what it's going to do is act as a knowledge base expert. You provide a knowledge source, etc. Right. So I really just recommend you don't just copy paste what I have here. Actually try to think about the scenario where when a person tries to call a medical clinic, how to structure the prompt, because if you just copy paste the prompt, right, you're never going to learn how to think about this kind of prompting. So how do I encourage you to think about how would a normal conversation looks like when I actually talk to a medical clinic asking questions, right? And from there, try to derive your own examples of how the conversation is going to go, and try to give guidelines on how to make it more human, etc. So this is an exercise for you to do. Your prompt should look slightly different to mine, right? But yeah, I'm going to change it back to 11 labs. Extract variable, you don't need to. And we can make this a global prompt through here. But yeah. And I'm just going to repeat this exercise then. Actually, is it the extracted variable? No, it didn't say the reason why user wants to book an appointment. Click save. Okay. And now it's going to go to another conversation node where it's now going to capture the personal details of the user, like their name, for example, right? So I'll put in the condition once if the user has provided the reason for booking an appointment, and I'm just going to go ahead and paste in the prompt for the capture patient name, right? Very similar, it's going to capture the name. So I'm just going to add a variable, call this name of the customer, actually full name of the customer. Change the voice settings again, back to 11 labs. Oh, this is really weird because, oh, you need to click save, yeah. Full name, because it keeps forgetting the variables. That you need to click save here. Okay, and yeah, very similar thing. Then I'm just going to click on the conversation node, and I'm going to put in the email for this time. I'm just going to copy in the prompt for capturing the emails of the customer. Now it's a little bit repetitive, but just bear with me. And you would just extract the variable email of the customer, right? And just click save. And you would just change the condition if user provided their full name, right? And we click on go to extract the emails. And now, after this, capturing the email, we want to capture what date and time do they actually want to do the appointment, right? So we're actually going to do another conversational note. And this time, the condition is about if the user provided the email. And here in the prompt, it's going to be slightly different because this is for capturing the appointment date and time, which I'm going to explain a little bit more. So the very key thing you might notice is that there are two blue variables. So this is exactly what the global variables in VAPI looks like. So we have the date and the current time. So this is a built-in VAPI variables that indicates to the LLM what the current date and current time is. The reason why is because sometimes the user might say, I want to book an appointment next Tuesday, right? But then the LLM doesn't know what today's date and today's time is. So the LLM cannot work out when the user actually wants the appointment. But by providing this context of the current date and current time, then VAPI knows, like the LLM knows, okay, so today is 29th of June, Sunday, then I will know that, for example, when user talk about this Tuesday, it will be the 1st of July, for example, right? So this actually gives the context the LLM needs to actually capture the date and time the user actually wants. And very important, I'm making sure that all date time fields should be provided in ISO 067 format. It's just a specific format, very standard format. So basically, you can look it up if you want, but it basically got the year, the month, the time. You've got a time, like time zone a date time separator, and you've got the time, hour, minutes, and seconds in this format in UTC, right? So this is a specific format I encourage you to look into. And from here, you will then extract the variables, which we're going to call it start date time, which is the user preferred date time of the appointment, right? And then we'll just add another variable which is called end date time, which is the end time of the appointment, which is 1 hour from start date from the user preferred date time of the appointment, as all appointments last for an hour. So let's assume all appointments last for an hour. The end date time is basically when the appointment ends. So if the user booked for 3 p.m., it's going to end at 4 p.m., right? The reason why we need to capture that information is because we actually need to use a tool, which is to check Google Calendar for availability if the clinic actually has the slot available to actually handle this appointment. So we're going to go to tool and we're going to select a tool called check availability. Now, the way that you do this in VAPI is actually pretty simple. If you just go to the expense sidebar and you go to your own profile, click settings, and if you go to integrations and if you scroll all the way down to tool providers, you will see there are different tools. There's Make.com, there's Go High Level, there's Slack, Google Sheets, Google Calendar. All you have to do is connect to your own Google Calendar, of your own Google Drive, like to your own Google Calendar, and it will be in sync. Then what you should do is you need to go to tools, and you will need to click on create tool. There's a bunch of different tools that you can create. You've got different functions, DTMF, which, as I kind of explained before, is basically where you say press 1 for customer support, press 2 for sales, etc. You've got the end call, query, transfer call option, send an SMS, send an API request to somewhere, use MCP, send a Slack message, Google Sheets, Google Calendar, and Go High Level, which is the CRM. For Google Calendar, all you're going to do is click on check availability, and this tool, you click check availability, and this tool should appear. Now you just need to give a description, which is check the availability of time slots in my Google Calendar. And my time frame is London, which is UTC. And all you have to do now is go back to the workflows, click on back to the workflow that we had. Actually, not this one. Yep. No, actually, it was the one. Sorry. And now you would just need to click on Tools, like which I just showed you. Like you just click on the Add a Note, and you just click on Tool, and then you would just select the Check Availability tool, and this will check the availability of time slot in Google Calendar. So I'm just going to say if the user provided their preferred date and time for the appointment, right? I'm just going to check the availability, and now you can just click a conversational note. So essentially, if the time slot is available, then this will happen. If the user is not available, if the time slot is not available, then this will go to another conversational note. So if the time slot is not available, right? Then it will go ahead and go to this prompt step. So if the time slot is indeed available, it's going to go ahead and go with this prompt. So what this does is basically saying that now you've captured the following information. You captured the name, you've captured the start date time, end date time, and the reason of the appointment. And now you just need to confirm with the user, right? Because now you're basically telling the user, hey, Tuesday at 4 p.m. actually works. Do you want to go ahead and confirm this slot? This is basically what this prompt does. So you need to state the availability, read back the full summary, use the specific formatting. You must follow the date format, making sure that the date and time actually format properly. If the patient confirms yes, then you go ahead and book the appointment, right? So what you do is you then click on Tools, and you just click on the transition and basically say if the user confirms the slot works, right? And you would just go ahead and select the tool, and you just click on Google Calendar Create Events. This will go ahead and actually book the appointments through the Google Calendar. Again, it's through the tools. Like you just go ahead and create tool, and you click on Google Calendar Create Events, right? That's all you need to do. And you go back to the workflow, and this will go ahead and create. And all you have to do is actually say something like, hey, this slot is not available. Can you please go ahead and, do you have another time that you actually want to do? And then you go ahead and repeat this function, which is repeat this note. Basically, you capture the user's second preferred date and time, and you repeat this process until a time slot works, which is very stupid, to be honest, in my opinion, because the disadvantage of VAPI is you cannot connect node back to the original node. You cannot choose to connect your current node back to there's no way to connect this node back to the previous node, right? Because usually what happens, as you'll probably see in VAPI in later, is that you can actually connect back to the previous node. So if the slot is not available, you simply route it back to this node and do the entire process again until it works. So you don't have to branch out numerous times if the slot doesn't work, right? So this is kind of the disadvantage of using VAPI. But for now, I'm just going to leave it blank, and I'm going to go to save. And actually, let's test it out.
Hi, thanks for calling Dr. Eva Rostova's medical clinic. How can I help you today?
Hey, I want to book an appointment.
For sure, just wondering what's the reason for your visit?
I have a headache.
Thank you. And what is the full name for the appointment?
Tom Smith.
Thank you, Tom. And where can we send the appointment confirmation? What is your email?
124@gmail.com.
Great, Tom. On what day would you like to schedule the appointment?
How about next Tuesday?
Next Tuesday works. What time would you like to come in? Our appointments are between 9 a.m. and 4 p.m.
What about 2 p.m.?
Just a sec. Okay, great. That time is available. So I have an appointment for Tom Smith on the 1st of July at 2 p.m. for a headache. Is all of that correct?
Yeah.
Okay, great. That time is available. So I have an appointment.
That is correct.
One moment.
Yeah, and it basically go ahead. I should probably set a note. It ends because it creates the appointment successfully, but then I should probably go ahead and say thanks, right, or something like that. But yeah, that's pretty much how the system works. Obviously, there's so many things that you can change, like to improve on this. Like for example, after each node, it should ask the user to confirm whether they've provided the correct name, but spell it out so that it doesn't get it wrong. The email and the reason, right? This is something that you can do on your own to extend upon the build. Things you can do as well, obviously, is to capture this, like the name and the reason in the email. All you have to do is go to tools, and you have to create a tool, and you would just create the Google Sheets, right? You would just create a Google Sheet tool and actually like capture it somewhere, or go high level in a CRM, more likely in real world scenarios, right? So these are things that you can do to obviously make it better. And yeah, as you can see, like it was kind of glitching out a little bit, like from the VAPI side when it was confirming itself twice a little bit. But other than that, like for for your first build of using conversational workflow, this is pretty good, right? And as you will see later, the retail and voice flow actually allows you to have slightly more control over the conversation flow. So let's actually go ahead and go to retail. Okay, so the next platform that we're going to be discussing is called Retail. So you would just literally head to retailai.com and you would just log in or click try for free. But I've already got an account, so I'm going to log in. Now, just to kind of set some expectations, the retail in terms of how it's going to feel is actually really similar to VAPI one. So you shouldn't have too much trouble if you kind of follow along what I was doing during the VAPI. We'll be building the exact same thing over here in retail, and you would notice a lot of them are very similar to what we've been doing in VAPI. And just to kind of go over the dashboard, you have the agents, which is where we built these voice agents. You've got the knowledge base, where we can upload different files, so the agents can have reference to. We've got phone numbers. This is where you can actually connect your agents to different phone numbers. Batch call, which is for outbound voice calling, so you calling people up, like for example cold calling. Call history, analytics, and billing. Right, I'm not going to go through each of them like in details, but because that's not the point. Like you guys can go to the website and actually play around it yourself. But the goal really is to kind of show you how to build an agent within the platform. Right? So to do that, you will just go ahead and click on Create Agent. Now, Retail has an option for you to choose either Chat Agent or Voice Agent. Now, personally, I wouldn't use that for Chat Agent, or I haven't been using that for Chat Agent for any of my like past projects. Like for Chat Agents, we usually go with Voice Flow. For Voice Agents, we go with. So for Chat Agent, we should go to Voice Flow. So I'm just going to go ahead and click on the Voice Agent. Now you have the conversational flow agent, single prompt agent, multi-prompt agent. Now it works exactly the same as VAPI. Single prompt agent, to recall, is one single prompt. Conversational flow agent, you have much more control and over the logic. Now Retail is this weird multi-prompt agent, which basically has multiple, as you probably imagine, multiple prompts, but it has less structure of a conversational flow agent. To be honest, like we probably won't be using this. Personally, I've only really been like doing projects with either single prompt agent or conversational flow agent, depending on the amount of control that you need. Let's start with single prompt agent. Now, once you're in, you would notice that a lot of the things are very similar to the VAPI. So let me just go ahead and actually just copy the prompt that we have for Emma, which is the AI voice assistant in the medical clinic. Right, so this is where you copy the prompt. The prompt is exactly the same as the VAPI one, so I'm not going to go over it too much. The main thing that needs to be changed is you can change the model here. You've got different LLM models that you can choose from, and you've got different voice models that you can choose from 11 Labs and also OpenAI, and you can just experiment with which one you like, and you can just choose the one that you go on. And from here you can choose, gender, accent, types, etc. I'm just going to go with Amy, which is the UK one. Then click on Use Voice, and from here you can choose what language it needs to be. for now, we're going to stick with English. UK, actually. And from here, you can see there's a welcome message where you have three options, which is either the user initiates, so the AI remains silent while the user speaks first, so the AI is waiting for the user to say something. AI initiates, meaning the AI begins with a dynamic begin message, so the AI actually start saying with a dynamic message, or AI begins with your predefined message. So this is where you means that AI will always say the same thing every time. So for us, let's just start with this. We'll say hi, thanks for calling the clinic's name, which is Dr. Edwards Brosaston Medical Clinic. How can I help you today? Right? And this is it. You finished building the single prompt agent. Of course, there are more things to be considered, which I'm going to explain a little bit more in the conversational flow agent. But in essence, this is it. You can test it out here in the test audio.
Hi, thanks for calling Dr. Eva Rostova's medical clinic. How can I help you today?
Hey, how are you?
Hello, thank you for asking. I'm here to assist you with any questions or appointment needs you may have. How can I help you today?
I want to book an appointment. Now, obviously, I haven't implemented the book appointment function yet, but obviously, so it's not going to book any appointments. So it's just going to have a conversation right now. But just to show you the kind of how it looks like within retail, but you can probably tell just from having the conversations. Don't you notice that latency and the lag seems to be better? At least from the web interface perspective, right? Obviously, if we're using the phone calling, like the phone number, it's going to be a different experience. But which I'm going to dive into a little bit after the deep dive into each platform. So stick into the end where I will do a complete comparisons of all the different platforms. But for now, let's actually go ahead and build the more complicated one, which is the conversational flow agent. You click on conversational flow agent and you click on create. Again, just to kind of go over the things that you probably know already, is with the global settings, where inside you will have your global prompt, very similar to VAPI one. So I'm just going to go ahead and paste in what we've entered in VAPI. And now we've copied it in the global prompt. I'm just going to go ahead and click save. Here you can also select your global prompt LLM. We're just going to stick with GPT 4.1 for now. And this is where you can choose your voice. Again, I'm just going to use Amy. And from here, we can navigate to see knowledge base, where we can add knowledge base to provide context to the agent. In this case, we're not going to do that, but you can, if you want to, go ahead and create your own document. Speech settings. This is important. This is actually very similar to VAPI one, where you can control how the AI sounds. So from here, you can select background noise. You can go ahead and have a background noise, let's say coffee shop or a call center, right? This is just to make it less awkward, because if there's no background noise and you're just calling the AI agent, sometimes it can feel quite awkward because of the way that how the conversation happens. So that makes the conversation experience a little bit more natural on the human side. Responsiveness, it controls how fast the AI agent responds after user finished speaking. So the higher this number, the faster the agent is responsive. For now, it's 1, meaning the agent will respond immediately without pausing. We usually want to put it as 1 normally for defaults anyway, because latency. So because there's built-in latency as well. So we'll just take it for 1 for now. Interruption sensitivity controls how sensitively AI can be interrupted by human speech. So what it means is that how can you be interrupted? So like if I talk to a normal human being, like I will stop when he's speaking, when someone else is speaking, right? Like I won't interrupt when someone else is speaking, right? Like normally if you're a polite person. So the higher this goes, it means that more likely the AI, when the AI is speaking and then the human try to interrupt the AI will stop speaking, right? So the higher the number, the more likely this will happen. So we'll just stick with 0.9 as the default for now. Back channeling enables the agent to use affirmations like yeah, during conversations, indicating active listening and engagement. Now, I have experimented with this personally. This is not like I don't really like this. Like sometimes, like we put like yeah, sure, right? Things like that. So this means that theoretically the agent will say such terms when I'm conversing with the agent. But what I found so far is that it's weird. Sometimes it can just say these random words out of nowhere. So might not be the best experience. If you want to use it, I would definitely try to lower this on the lower end. Enable speech normalization. It converts text elements like numbers, currency, dates in human-like spoken forms. Definitely want to turn it on. So what that means is that you don't want it to sound robotic, right? So you don't want to say, for example, 234,556 when you want to say 23,665, right? So that's the difference between just reading out the numbers and speaking it like how a human would. So reminder message for it's not too important, to be honest. Pronunciation is important. So if you have certain words that is not standard English, or do you think the AI will struggle with, this is where you can actually add a word, and you can add its IPA pronunciation, the phenomenon, into this pronunciation. And that's pretty much cover the global settings. On here, we have a few different more settings, just going to go over them really quickly. Transcription settings, we're not going to go too much about it, it's literally just transcription. Core settings, again, I wouldn't worry too much about that for now. The thing that I do want to talk about is post-core analysis, where we've done similar things to VAPI. If you remember, in VAPI, in the single prompt system, inside of messaging, we sent, maybe not this one, there we go, we sent to the NAN workflow to log the end call results. We can do exactly the same thing with retail AI. So the post-call data retrieval then define the information that you need to extract from the voice. So I'm just going to go ahead and add some data type. So I'm just going to put in my name, for example, full name, the name of the customer, for example, right? And you click save. This is actually really similar to the structured variable within VAPI. So if you go ahead and go back to workflows, if you go to the one that we've been working on, remember the one that we built on VAPI is extremely similar to extract variables, right? But rather than doing this within each node, you actually do it like globally, where you kind of you extract the variable throughout the entire flow, throughout the entire conversation, and after the call, based on the call transcript, it's going to extract the variables that you want to send to Google Sheets to log the call results. So it's slightly different, but because this one actually happens during the conversation, this one happens after the call. So you can kind of define what variables you want to extract from your call transcript. I'm just going to delete it for now. Security and fallback settings, so it's just basically in case, if the term voice does provide the fails, there's a fallback voice that goes to. That's literally it. Webhook settings, the webhook URL to basically receive events from retail. This is exactly what I just described, which is within the VAPI, you can paste your NAN webhook URL so that you can pass the information to call logs from retail to Google Sheets, etc. So that's pretty much the global prompt. Let's actually go ahead and actually build this out. So within VAPI, you've got the welcome node, which is extremely similar to the VAPI node. So I'm just going to go ahead and just kind of copy what I've got so far into the retail. Now, one thing to notice is that you can either select prompt or static sentence. Static sentence is exactly the voice solution is going. The voice agent is going to say exactly this every time. Prompt, it's going to vary a little bit. So it's going to listen to your prompt, and the LLM is going to respond differently. Now, the difference between this and VAPI is that, well, VAPI actually allows both. You can have your first message and you can have your prompt. But within retail, you can either only really have the prompt or the static sentence. So it's good or bad. Like, it's kind of different use case, to be honest, because this is only the first message, right? The rest of the message, it has to be a prompt. Whereas in retail, there's no first message, then the prompt. It's either just the prompt or just the static sentence. So the dynamics is slightly different, but in general, I find that, honestly, the retail one has a little bit more flexibility because it allows you to just put those static sentences in. So I'm just going to go ahead and copy this into the prompt. And from here, there's a few different options. You can skip response, which is jump to the next node without waiting for user response. Global node, similar to VAPI, you can allow other nodes to jump to this node, right? So if I just turn it on, we have global node, and you can describe the condition of when to jump back to this node. Very similar to VAPI. Choose a different LLM. You can block interruptions. Users cannot interrupt while AI is speaking. To be honest, I don't usually turn this on. Fine-tuning examples where you add example conversation. Now this is important. Fine-tuning a conversation is basically giving the agent, the VAPI, like retail, the example conversation that you want to happen ideally. So after filling in what the user is going to say and what the agent is going to say, the agent is going to have this as an in-context learning. What that means is just you're giving some few short examples to the LLM to be able to generate a better response, a more closely related response to the examples that you've given. But for now, I'm just going to turn it off. Transition is exactly very similar to VAPI. So the transition in this, what they call condition in VAPI, is if the user wants to book an appointment or if the user has a general questions, right? Same thing within retail. So we can literally just copy this and build this within our retail agent. And if the user wants to book an appointment, right, etc. So you've got the two different transitions, and it will branch out to two different nodes. So I'm just going to go ahead and create an additional node. The way you do that is you can drag here, and you can add a new node, which is conversation, and you can just connect the nodes to the nodes and do formal connections, right? And from here, I can just write another prompt, which is the same as the one that we've written in VAPI, which is capturing the reason for the appointment booking. Actually, that's the incorrect one. It should be this one. And for the question answer, I'm just going to copy this prompt right here. This is question and answer, right? Now, this captures the reason, right? The reason for the transition. Sorry, for the reason for the appointment. The user is given the reason for the appointment. Right. But the problem becomes, in retail, there's no built-in variables where there's a current date, a current time. Because remember, in VAPI, there is a variable called date and time where you can actually, from date and time, the current date and current time, you can determine the date. For example, if I say next Tuesday, it's able to know that when is next Tuesday. Unfortunately, as of right now, in retail, there's no such variables. So we will need to actually do the check availability over in something like NA10. But for now, we'll come to it. But for now, let's just keep that in mind. Now, you may be asking, well, what is this variable that I've just dragged as well, right? So that's actually called the extract variables. So remember, within VAPI, within each of these conversational nodes, you have the option to actually extract variables. Now, in retail, unfortunately, you can't. There's no as you see, there's no option to just extract variables, right? You have to add in an external extract variables node, and you have to connect up the conversational node into the extract variable node. So you just need to connect two nodes as usual, and from here, you can write the reasons, right? So you can have the variable name reason, the reason the user books the appointment, usually a medical reason, right? And the transition will be the user's reason of the appointment was successfully captured, right? So that's how you extract these variables. And now you would just repeat that process for all the variables that we have captured within VAPI, like the name, the date, etc. So let me just kind of go ahead rather than you watching me do this again. So let me just go ahead and do it myself. Okay, I've gone ahead and actually copy paste in all the different transitions. So as you can see, I've gone ahead and copied the name, the email prompt, which is exactly the same as the VAPI one, to capture we have an extract variable nodes to capture the email of the user. And I've adjusted the prompt slightly from the VAPI one because remember, there's no current date and current time. So I literally just asked it to capture the appointment date and the appointment time variables. And after that, I will ask the retail to extract the appointment date and the appointment time variables separately. And then, this is where it's a little bit different than VAPI. We use something called the function node. So all you need to do is literally click on the add on the function node, and a blue node should appear. And the blue node should appear, okay, not sure why it's not appearing, but essentially you will have this blue node, exactly. And from here you can add your own function. For if you click on add, there are different functions that you can add. There's check calendar availability, work on the calendar, custom function, which you can have more control over what function you want to use. But for the purposes of this exercise, we're going to be checking the availability of our Google Calendar before confirming the booking with the user. And to do that, we're going to use something called cal.com. So let's go ahead and go to cal.com. So within cal.com, if you didn't know, it's basically a scheduling software to make scheduling much easier. Once you go to cal.com, go ahead and sign up into the account. And the only thing that you really need to know is that within cal.com, you can create different event types. So as you can see here, there are 15-minute secret meetings, there's a 30-minute meeting, there's 15 minutes meeting, there's demo. I can call it whatever you want. If you click on new, I can literally call it meeting with CEO. Right. So you have this URL, and then you have a description, etc. And then you can go ahead and continue and create this event. Now I'm not going to go ahead and do it because I've already done it, but within each event, if you click on it, let's say the 30-minute meeting, you can see that the URL, there's a number. That is important. This number is the unique event ID of within cal.com. So each event will have its own unique event ID. Meeting with CEO, 30-minute meeting, quick chat, they all have their own unique event ID. All you need to do is copy that number, and within your function, within your check availability function, you will have to copy and paste this event type ID into this function. The second thing that you need to do, like you can adjust different things here, right? You can adjust where you want to have the meetings on Google Meet. You can adjust your work availability, which time zone you're in. I'm in the London time zone, so I'm just going to leave it as 9 to 5 between Monday to Friday. You can change it according to your work availability. Limit how often you can be booked, minimum notice of 2 hours, etc. Like you can play around with the settings if you want, but for now the most important things to get the retail voice agent working is actually through go to settings, and you need to get your API keys. Click on API keys, and you would just click add, and you would just name it something, save, and then you can just copy it into the dashboard. But I'm not going to go ahead and do that because I've already got the API keys. Now, I already got this API key, which I copy pasted into cal.com. By the way, I'm not going to use this for anything, so I'm just going to delete this after this video. But anyway, I'm just going to click on update, and you will select your time zone, which for me is UTC, so I'm just going to leave this as UTC. And I'll just add the description when the user asks for availability, check the calendar, and provide the available slot. I'm just going to click update, and I'm going to select this function. Now, what this does is that whenever retail goes through the check availability node, it's going to run the function calling, which is the cal.com to check for the availability of the calendar, right? So if the time slot is available, it's going to say, nice, looks like this slot is free, should I go ahead and confirm this booking? If the time slot is not available, what we can do is we can route it back to the conversations where we ask the users to provide us with another date and time, right? We're going to repeat this loop until there is a time and date where it works for the user, right? Here's the thing. You cannot do this thing in VAPI. The reason why is because remember when in VAPI we're like, okay, we call the tool to check for the availability of a candidate. Time slot is available, good. Time slot is not available, we need to say something, but you can't route it back. Like you can't route it back to the original prompt where we ask for the user to give us the date and time, right? There's no, because the reason why is because there's no way you can drag the transition back to the original prompt. You cannot do a self-recursive function. A recursive function basically it's repeating, is that you cannot create a loop within VAPI workflow. You need to create a separate node. So technically, if there are like 10 slots and the user tried 10 slots and 10 slots are not available, you need to have 10 different of these conversational nodes, right? Which obviously it's not very scalable. So I really hope there's a way for VAPI to actually fix this and like actually allow us to loop workflows within to loop with different nodes within the workflow, which is something retail can does, right? If the time slot is not available, it will just loop it back to the original work, and we just keeps on doing that forever, right? And now we go back to the conversation, like looks like this slot is free, should I go ahead and confirm this booking? And if the user said yes, if the user said no, if the user said yes, then again we're going to go ahead and actually I'm going to change the functions, because what I'm going to do is going to go ahead and book on the calendar. Now I'm just going to again copy the event ID. Actually, I'm just going to I forgot the API key again, so I'm just going to go ahead and copy the API key from here. I'm just going to add book on the calendar, paste the API key again, and then go back to the 30-minute meeting, copy the event ID, back at retail, paste it in the event type ID, and change the time zone to UTC, because this is where I am, and we'll go ahead and book the appointment. So I'm just going to go ahead and save, and I'm just going to call it book appointment, right? And if the user say yes, I'm just going to go ahead and book the appointment. And oops, this is really buggy, right? It's really laggy right now for some reason. Well, it goes all the way back. Okay, but within here, I'm just going to click on speak during execution during this function node. What this does is actually allows you to tell the LLM what to say when it was booking the appointment. I'm just going to say something like objective book the appointment for the user, right? And then I'm just going to say something like booking is successful. I'm going to go ahead and route it to another conversational node. I'm going to go ahead and say, great, see you later, right? Or you can change it to wherever you want, that's not important, right? But basically, if the user say yes, then it goes to the book appointment node. If the user say no, no problem. We then ask the user to provide an alternative date and time, right? So we go back to this conversation node. See how useful it is to actually have the function to route conversations back to previous nodes without creating more additional conversation nodes. But yeah, we pretty much have it. We pretty much have the whole built where we check for the availability and protocol. So let's actually go ahead and actually test it.
Hello, you've reached Dr. Eva Rostova's clinic. This is Emma speaking. How can I help you today?
Hey, I just want to book an appointment.
For sure. Could you let me know the reason for the appointment?
Yeah, I just have a sore knee.
Thanks for letting me know. And what is the full name I should book the appointment under?
Tom Smith.
Thanks, Tom. To make sure you get your appointment confirmation and any reminders, could you share the best email address for you?
124@gmail.com.
Great, thanks. On what day would you like to come in for your appointment? We're open Monday through Friday.
How about 3rd of July?
Okay, July 3rd works. What time that day would you like to come in?
We have openings between 9 o'clock in the morning and 4 o'clock in the afternoon.
Let's do 3 p.m.
Alright, let me just check if July 3rd at 3 p.m. is available for you. One moment, please. Nice, looks like this slot is free. Shall I go ahead and confirm this booking?
Yeah, go ahead.
Alright, I am booking your appointment for July 3rd at 3 p.m. One moment while I confirm that for you. Great, see you later.
Bye. So as you can see, it feels a little bit more clean than the VAPI one, which is good. But, I mean, there's the advantage and disadvantage of using retail and VAPI, which again I would explain a little bit more towards the end of the video. But hopefully this has given you a taste of how the retail environment looks like, how does it feel building in retail, and hopefully it should feel pretty much similar to the VAPI experience, except from a few different things. So that's the kind of fundamentals within the basics within retail. Obviously there are much more different things that you can do. I highly encourage you to look through some of the notes like press digit, which I didn't really get to mention in this video. But essentially what this does is like DTMF. If you didn't know, DTMF stands for dual tone multi-frequency, where it's traditional when you call someone out, it's like, if you want customer support, press 1. If you want sales team, press 2. That's DTMF. Recommend looking it up. What this does is basically it's basically a more advanced version of that. It's basically if the user say, okay, customer support, then it will route the voice agent to the customer support phone number. This is essentially what it does. It's basically phone routing. So hopefully that gives you an idea of retail. And next, we'll be heading to VoiceFlow. And the next solution that we're going to be talking about is VoiceFlow. So if you've been in the channel long enough, you probably know that I've done lots of VoiceFlow tutorials. Like in my opinion, like outside of like, if we're not just talking about voice AI, we're talking about conversational AI as a whole in terms of like, building these chat agents and also voice agents. It's one of the best platforms in terms of like designing conversations and having good conversational experience, which I'm going to show you why in this video. Hopefully I can give you some insights into why as well. Obviously it's a little bit different when we're just comparing voice AI platforms, because like platforms like VAPI and retail, they really just do voice AI. Whereas VoiceFlow is more on the chat, like text-based side as well. So it's a little bit different to kind of compare in terms of just voice AI. But hopefully, if you've been seeing some of my other videos, you're kind of familiar with the platform. If you're not, you can check out some of my older VoiceFlow videos to get familiar with the platform. Essentially, you hold on to voiceflow.com and you go ahead and create an account. Once you're in, you're going to create a project, and this will be kind of the interface, this canvas, you'll be in here. And the first thing you want to do by default is a text-based agent. So you need to turn it to a voice-based agent. The way to do that is go to the interface, go to modality interface, and you will just select from chat agent to voice agents. And you can go back to the workflow, and this is where you can start building these kind of voice agents. And the way that we can do that using the example that we're building, using the medical example, inbound voice caller of the medical clinic that we've been building in the series of videos, it's not very different, but it's kind of different to retail and VAPI because you have much more control over the conversations. Let's just start by having a message in the beginning, which you can set a static message. So you can just drag the node here, and you can connect the start node from here, and you can have your first message. You can say something like, "Hi, welcome to." I will just copy actually what's in the retail, so to save us some time. Actually, within retail is a prompt step, but let me just kind of go ahead and write a static message. Welcome to. Let me just copy the name. Dr. Eva at the clinic. Maybe not welcome to, but like thanks for calling. How can I help you today? Right, it would go ahead and actually like read this message out with the text-to-speech model that it has. And the next thing that we need to do is have some sort of prompt step, right? So this is now a static message, but VoiceFlow also support prompt step. So the way that you would do that is actually if you click on talk and you click on prompt. This will go ahead and create a prompt step for you. So you can have, as you can see, it's The visual interface, you have more control over the prompt, over the return VAPI, because you can have your own system prompt and you can have your own user prompt. So in the system prompt, you usually kind of instruct how the LLM should think, and the user is what the LLM should do, right? So you can just say like, you are an expert customer support agent in Dr. Eva's medical clinic, right? It's very obviously you can go into more than that, but for now it's good to know. And we can just paste in the prompt that we have. So let's say this is specifically to answer the customer's question. So I'm just going to copy this prompt and I'm going to paste it here, right? And you would say your knowledge base expert, for example, right? So the way that you can actually configure the model is through here, and you have the choice between different models. So I'm just going to choose like for all, and you can choose the temperature and max tokens. And with all models, you can have a JSON output. What that means is you can have a structured output. So for example, if I just click on sentiment analysis, then it will force the LM to actually just output the sentiment, which will be happy, natural, or sad, right? So it's like because in the enum object, like don't worry too much about what enum is. What that means is just basically a list of fixed variables that it will output, essentially. But let me just kind of don't turn off JSON output for now. So this will actually act as the question and answer prompt, right? So you just go ahead and name it like question and answer prompt, and you will connect to here. But actually, before you do that, you actually want to know if the user even asking about question and answer prompt. So the way that you can do that is you can have some sort of intent classifications, and there's two ways to do it. The first way is actually just to capture the user reply and try to classify it. So I'm just going to go ahead and capture the entire user reply to last utterance. So what this step actually does is it saves whatever the user type into a voice flow variable called last utterance. So you can see like there's a curly bracket here. That just means it's saved in a variable within voice flow, similar to how we're trying to, in retail, we're trying to extract the variable reason, within retail, right? So it's the same thing, but it's just a built-in voice variable capturing what the users last said. So you can capture the user reply, and you can have some sort of sentiment analysis. So what it means by that, you can have another prompt step. Do some strata here. Okay, there seems to be a problem where I can't seem to drag. Let me just refresh this very quickly. Okay, there we go. That was a glitch, but actually, we actually don't want the prompt step. We actually want the set step, which you can find in logic set. Oh, it's doing the same problem again. Sorry guys, it seems to be a little bit glitchy on the voice flow. Maybe it's probably my end, to be honest. Probably have too many tabs opened. So let me actually just like delete some of the stuff. There you go. And you would just what this does basically is you set the variables to the output of the prompt step. So if I just select a prompt called intent classification, and actually I'm just gonna go ahead and not clarification checks. This is the wrong prompt. But you would just say something like, you're an expert AI assistant trained to classify intent of the user, and you would just say like, classify the user's input, which is last utterance, into different intents, right? So if the user is asking a general question, output let's say general. If the user is asking, if the user wants to book an appointment, output appointment. And you probably need to say something like, do not output anything else. Do not else. And do not explain yourself. Simply output general or appointment in lowercase. Okay, right. So obviously, like, you can do a little bit slightly different. Like, the way that I usually do it, to be honest, is just like alpha 1. So you don't have to deal with lowercase or uppercase and just alpha 2. But like for you guys, like, because you want to see the intent a little bit more clear, so I'm just going to put it in words for now. And you can add in some examples if you want, but I'm just gonna, you can go ahead to do it, but like I'm just gonna skip it for now, just for time purposes. And you can choose your own model. I'm just gonna put 4.1 for now. And you'll just choose the, yep, everything looks right. And you'll just set the variable, which is, let's call it intent. I'm gonna create a variable called intent. And now you can now use logic branch within VoiceFlow, which is working based on the if condition. So we just click on path, click on condition builder, and now you can select if this happened, do this. So if the intent, I'll generally just use contains general, then it will go through the question and answer prompt, right? And you can just say if the same thing, the variable intent contains appointment, then you will go to this branch. And the way that you can say that is, something like, perfect, can I have your name, please, right? And now you start doing the lead capture that we've been doing within retail. And you can just go ahead and click on listen, click on capture, and within capture, you can either capture entire user reply, or you can capture something called entities. And you can create entities within VoiceFlow. And you can just say full name, and you can just have data type called name. And you can just go ahead and create the entity. Or you already have it. You already have the variable. So I'm just going to call it name. Let's call it user name. There you go. And this will, you should probably list, there's two options. So one of them is listen for other intents. It's basically determine whether other intent in the scope when the user is on this step. So you probably want to turn this on because you don't want other steps during the workflow to be listening to this specific intent. And I'm just going to ahead and add the reprompt. What reprompt is basically if the user inputted something that is not a name, what do you want to say to the user? Right, so it'll be like, please enter. So if the user basically, rather than replying their name and they say something like, something completely irrelevant, let's say I want a burger, then the reprompt will basically tell the user, hey, by the way, you should say the name. We're asking you about the name, right? So you can just say something like, hey, sorry, please say your name. Please provide your name, please. Or something like that, right? So this is where the reprompt happens. And you can repeat that process for the email, phone number, availability, like the booking date and the booking time, etc. I'm not going to go too much into this because there's a more kind of different way, a cleaner way of doing this. This is where the traditional VoiceFlow comes in. As you can see, you can have so much control over the conversation. Like you can branch out different conversational path, use different prompt steps set to different variables. Like, you can drag it back to the variables if you want. Like, it's out of all those three platforms, like there's no transition. You don't need to put in a transition because like you can define the transition very clearly using the condition builder within VoiceFlow and the set variable step, right? Which is basically the prompt step. So you have much more clearly defined ways of, structuring the entire conversation, because this VoiceFlow is built for this conversational agent. It's built for like, text-based chatbot, etc. So that's why it's so good in like doing this kind of conversational design. But it also means that there's a lot more things you need to be taken care of because there's a lot more error handling, for example, that you need to be careful of because of doing this different like structured chatbot. So it can get complicated and long pretty quickly. But the advantage is that you have like all these visual ways of doing this, like with this drag and drop builder. So yeah, this is kind of the traditional way of how you should be using VoiceFlow. By the way, just to kind of go into how much control you can have, there's also a JavaScript block for those who are more developers focused. So you can literally do something like you set a variable like today equals to new dot date, and you can say something like today equals to JSON dot stringify today. Like, for example, this will give you the current date, because remember, the problem with retail is that you don't know the current date. So that's why you need to do the appointment. Like, you can't use the essentially built-in variables of the current date and time. And with VAPI, it's literally like they have a built-in variable, it's called date, right? Within VAPI, if you remember. And the way, because you can literally write JavaScript within VoiceFlow, so you can just quite easily extract like today's date, for example, right? So you can use this to do the appointment booking, if you want to continue building on this flow. There's so many different things you can do with having access to JavaScript. You can build your own function, which, for example, if you go to here, you can create different functions. As an example, you can connect to HubSpot to create contact. You can create to Shopify to get customers or to get ordered by ID. You can connect to Firebase. You can connect to Notion. You can connect to Zapier, etc. Right? So, for example, if you go to HubSpot, create contact, you can write your own JavaScript function to do this. So, like, it supports like coding within this platform if you want to. So that's what I meant by it has so much like control over how you construct this conversation. So the second way that I recommend you to actually do it is actually through the agent step. So what I mean by that is you can click on the agent and you can just create a new agent. So within here, what the agent step is, it actually provides a agentic framework within VoiceFlow that allows for tool calling. So you can just write a giant prompt within this agent step, and you can connect to different things like the knowledge base. And I should probably do a separate video on this, but basically they now have added buttons, cards, and carousels within the agent step. So it will automatically, like autonomously, like dynamically create this cards and carousels options for you if you want to. It allows for tool calling. For example, connect to Zendesk, Google Sheets, using API call functions. So it will know when to use those calls by instructing the agent, right? So think of it like the single prompter within VAPI or retail, but it actually allows for tool calling. So it's actually more to be fair, the VAPI ones also support tool calling, but this is much more clear in terms of what tools you can call, and in terms of the function, like you can create your own function. It has much more structure to the entire agent. So I'll definitely recommend building on this agent step to start with. And I've actually gone ahead, just for time purposes, with a lead capture agent. So what this does is, you have the patient information collected, agent prompt, like you're Emma, you're an AI voice assistant, Primary purpose is to accurately gather the patient's full name, email, and reason for visit. You've got the voice and persona, you've got the personality, etc. So you've got the conversational flow. So see how much more detail you actually need to prompt compared to just a prompt step within VoiceFlow. Like, you need to basically break it down every single detail within this prompt, like in order to make this into the agent step, in order to make it work. You need to, with the conversational flow, the privacy statement, information collection structure, verification techniques, to execution. This is where you kind of need to know. So the way that you declare variable is you add a bracket. So I want to add variable email, and I need it to create a variable reason, right? I'm calling the two, you provide for three variables collect. So the way that you do calling is actually through here. So you can just add like an API call, you can add a function, but for now, I've connected to Google Sheets. So there's a built-in tool within VoiceFlow called Add to Google Sheets. So the way that you can do that is you just need to connect to Google Sheets. So you just need to go to here, and you can manage your connection to Google Sheets. I've already connected it, but you can go ahead and do that. Now, you will need to create a spreadsheet. I've already created a spreadsheet on my Google Space called patient info with the full name, email, and reason for visit. So right now, if you click on spreadsheet URL, you can select a different spreadsheet. I've already gone ahead and select that spreadsheet, but you can go ahead and select the spreadsheet that you created in your Google account. And the range, the agent will collect it. The values, the agent will collect it. So you just need to put an LM description, which is basically add the information captured, i.e. full name, email, and reason of appointment from the patient. And the agent should be able to actually automatically fill in the blanks for the spreadsheet, essentially. And there's different paths. So paths are basically exit. So basically, to your appointment booking, when should the agent leave this agent note is through something called paths. So you can call it the appointment booking, and you can add an element description. Trigger this when the information has been successfully captured to Google Sheets, right? And the required variables, I just like to do this here because the reason why is because you would need to basically, sorry, let me just go ahead and fill in the information first before I try to explain. So just go ahead and click the full name. And you've got email, and you've got reason, right? Yeah, you need to basically fill in the full name of the customer. You need to basically fill in the LM description, email of the customer, and the reason of the appointment scheduled by user. So by having a required variables of the name, email, and reason, it means that only if the LLM captured all three variables would it be able to actually pass on to the next node. So that basically adds another layer of guarantee that the agent will be able must have captured all three variables before exiting. So after you exit, it goes to the appointment booking agent. So let me just kind of link it up first. The appointment booking agent, very similar, you provide the name, the email, and current year 2025, and you give the time zone, which is UTC, and all you does is actually the reason for visit is the variable reason. So I'm just gonna go ahead, and the same with here. Yeah, so it's pretty a standard conversational flow, how you would talk to a human when you try to book a tool. So I'm not gonna go through all of it, but on a high level, what it does is essentially it calls a tool called check availability, which is an API call that you can construct. Check availability. It collects the name, the email, the booking date, and booking time the user suggests, and it collects the user location, which is UTC, and all of that will be sent to an NAN workflow to actually check the available slots of a Google Calendar. So here's NAN, and I have an agent where it's a very simple prompt, literally check the appointment availability of the user and suggest the closest available time slot if the requested time is not available, right? And it's connected to two tools, which is first, both of them Google Calendars, but the first one is check empty slots. It's to check if the user suggested time slot is even empty in the Google Calendar. If it is, then it will basically check the availability to see if it's actually available, and will return the response back to VoiceFlow. This is the first tool that we're going to use. So I'm just going to say something. Trigger is when the user has provided a preferred date and time for the appointment, right? And it's going to go ahead and create another API tool, which is book the appointment. So trigger this when the date and time is available and the user confirms the slot. So when the user confirms that, yeah, this time works, then it would take all the variables again, and it's gonna call the book appointment NAM flow. So yeah, these are the two tools, and this is only one way of doing it, and it's actually the easier way. The other way to do it is to directly do an API call or you can write your own custom function to the Google Calendar API, which if you want to, I would suggest have a look at the developers like Google Docs, and you can click on the Calendar API, and you can try to use the Calendar API to create events, etc. So it's pretty extensive with the Node.js to kind of have a look, like if you want to integrate this directly to Google Calendar, to write a function to directly like interact with your own Google Calendar, that works as well. But the reason I didn't show you in this video is because it's probably get a little bit more technical than expected, and this is just an introduction, right? So yeah, but by any means, like feel free to explore. And I'm just gonna stick with GPT 4.1 for now. Right, so hopefully that gives you an idea of how we can think about building this agents, this conversational agents using the agents that within VoiceFlow. And the way that you can configure the speech models is actually through behavior. You go on voice, and you can select your own text-to-speech model. You have 11 Labs, Google, Amazon, Microsoft. I'm just going to stick with 11 Labs, and you can choose your own model, or you can have add your own custom voice from 11 Labs. Again, you can choose your own 11 Labs models, and you can have background audio to make it less awkward. Very similar to what we've been doing in VAPI and retail. Same with the talking speak, stability and similarity boost, and also the voice input. You can choose your own provider. Stay with DeepRam, no for free to be honest. And yeah, this is pretty much it. And you can add your own like graphic URL, very similar to VAPI and retail, to do a post-call analysis if you want to. But yeah, that's pretty much it for the configuration of the voice agents within VoiceFlow. Let's give it a go.
Thank you for calling Dr. Eva Rostova's clinic. You're speaking with Emma. To ensure quality of service, this call may be recorded. How can I help you today?
Hey, I just want to book an appointment.
Certainly, I can help get that started for you. First, I'll need to collect 3 pieces of information to prepare for scheduling. Before we begin, I want to assure you that all your information is kept confidential and protected. I'll just need your full name, the reason for your visit, and an email address for confirmation. Let's start with the full name for the appointment, please.
It's Tom Smith.
Thank you, Tom. Just to confirm, I have the name as Tom Smith. Could you please spell your last name for me to ensure it's correct?
Yeah, it's Smith.
Got it. Thank you for confirming Smith. And what is the reason for your visit today?
Yeah, I might have pulled a muscle like on the knee, but I'm not too sure.
Okay, I understand. Thank you for sharing that. Possible muscle issue around your knee. Now, to what email address can we send appointment confirmations and reminders?
Try124@gmail.com.
Thank you. Just to make sure I have it right, that's 124@gmail.com. Is that correct?
Yeah, 124@gmail.com, yeah.
Perfect. Thank you. I have all the initial information saved. Now, I will pass you over to our scheduling assistant who will help you find the best available date and time for your appointment. Please hold for just a moment.
Sure.
Thank you for holding, Tom. This is Emma, and I'll be happy to help you find an appointment time. I see you're looking to book an appointment for a possible muscle issue around your knee. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct.
Great, thank you for confirming. To get started, on what day would you like to schedule your appointment?
How about next, like, Tuesday?
Just to clarify, did you mean next Tuesday for your appointment? If so, that would be Tuesday, June 10th, 2025. Boss YP5, does that sound right?
No, it's next Tuesday, yeah.
Thank you for clarifying. So you'd like to schedule for next Tuesday? That will be Tuesday, June 3rd, 2025. What time on that day would work best for you? Our appointments are available between 9 a.m. and 4 p.m.
How about 2 p.m.?
Okay, 2 o'clock. Let me just check the availability for you. Give me just one moment. Good news, that time is available. So that's an appointment on Tuesday, June 3rd, 2025 at 2 p.m. Would you like me to go ahead and book that for you?
Yeah, go for it.
Excellent. Your appointment is now confirmed. Just to summarize, you are scheduled for a visit with Dr. Zer Rostova on Tuesday, June 3rd, 2025 at 2:00 p.m. Please remember to bring your photo ID and your current insurance card to your appointment. We also suggest arriving about 15 minutes early. A confirmation will be sent to your email at 124@gmail.com. Is there anything else I can help you with today?
No, that's it. Thank you very much. So for what it's worth, for just 2 conversation notes, it's already pretty powerful. So yeah, that's pretty much sums up voice flow. As you can see, you have much more control over the conversations as well. But yeah, so hopefully this has given you an overtaste of voice flow. Let's actually jump ahead and go to 11 Labs. So the way that this is 11 Labs. So 11 Labs, if you didn't know, is actually where the text-to-speech model comes in. It's one of the most popular industry-wise text-to-speech model, but they have their own conversational AI platforms where you can build agents on top of their own text-to-speech platform. And the way you do that is just log in and you just create your own account. And if you go in, you will have the onboarding. I'm just gonna kind of go through this. This is not my actual data flow, by the way, in case you work. Just gonna skip. Yeah, there's this 11 Lab version 3, by the way, which is the latest text-to-speech model. Apparently, it's the most expressive model, which I totally agree. Like, you can be laughing, you can have audio text, to control delivery, motion, etc. So you can have lots of control over this. Even though I don't think we can actually use it in VoiceFlow Retail or VAPI yet, but as soon as it rolls out, you can imagine how human-like this will become. But that's another story. What we are concerned with, however, is the conversational AI, where we can build these different agents. So this is the conversational AI platform within 11 Labs, and it's pretty similar to VAPI. You can go ahead and just click on Create an Agent. You have Support Agent, Mindfulness Code, Sales Agent, Feeling, and Character. Let's just start from blank. And from here, it's actually really similar to VAPI. The unfortunate thing about 11 Labs is you actually can't control their conversational pathways. They only support, as of right now, a single prompter agent. So you can only have a single prompt, and very similar to the VAPI single prompt agent. So it only really is for a simple use case, unfortunately, for now. But I can imagine 11 Labs actually eventually rolls out conversational flow, and then you can then start building more complex conversational flows, similar to how you did with voice flow and retail. But let me just kind of go ahead and build the same agents in English. You can select additional language if you want. I'm just going to select your first message. Again, very similar to VAPI. So I'm just going to actually go ahead and just copy in the prompt, the single prompter prompt that we've copied in for VAPI, and we can see. Go ahead and pop in the prompt for 11 Labs, and I'm just gonna say, hey, welcome to Dr. We have to space this so many times now. How can I help you today? And you can just add variables, like these are the system variables native to 11 Labs, like the agent ID, the caller ID, call number, call duration seconds, the time zone, conversation ID, etc. So you can have your variable, which is date and time, which is the same as VAPI, basically the built-in variable to store the current date and time for appointment booking purposes. You can place in your home place value, you can just put in, let's say today, which is 29th of June, 2025. Let's say placeholder value is right now is 4 a.m. where I am right now, etc. Right? And you can choose your own LLM. You can choose 2.5 Flash. You can choose Sonnet with the price per minute, GPT, pretty standard. I'm just going to stick with GPT 4.0 for now. And you can choose the temperature, let's say deterministic, creative, more creative, right? So I'm just going to stick with 0.3 for now. Limit token usage, configure the maximum number of tokens the LLM can predict. A limit will be applied with values greater than 0. Don't worry too much about it, like I'll just set as a default. Now this is important, knowledge base, we discussed this before, where you can add documents to allow agents to actually retrieve information from those documents that you provide, like TXT files. You can just add those documents here. Tool calling, again very similar to VAPI. You can have the option to choose the encode tool, detect language, where you can gives the agent the ability to change the language during conversation, which is very useful. Right? This is what makes the voice agent multilingual. Skip term, the agent will skip term, use explicitly indicated in the moment. Right, just need a sec. Transfer to agent, you can transfer to call to another AI agent, which is what you see in VoiceFlow. When I try to transfer from the lead capture agent to the appointment booking agent, you can imagine a very similar use case if we turn it on. Transfer to number, etc. So you can have your own custom tools, so you can set up your own like webhook and everything. Like you can set up your own API call to pass on information to something like NAN as an example, to again do the check availability and the book appointment tool. You can also add on the client side your own tool, but then don't worry too much about it for now. Just to get this point of this video, just to get you guys familiar with the platform. You can add your own MCP service. Personally, I haven't really touched that at the moment. Don't really need to use that. And you have, so this is pretty much where the interface is. And you can evaluate conversations within here, and you can have different integrations, phone numbers. You can connect to your own Twilio number if you want to import number, or from your SIP trunk. You can perform outbound calling, which is again batch calling, very similar to what we did in retail. So again, it's actually really one of the simplest like interface in terms of creating these voice agents, because if you've already been familiar with VAPI, retail, and VoiceFlow, this is really simple. So the point is, it's not quite there yet in terms of creating complicated conversational flow, but I really see the potential of 11 Labs just having its own orchestration layer of building these voice agents. And okay, so now we've gone through each of the individual platforms with VAPI, retail, VoiceFlow, and 11 Labs. You may ask, like, Edwin, which platform is best? So I'm just going to go ahead and actually summarize and kind of give you a little bit more context which platform you should use in what use case. Let's start with VAPI. VAPI is actually, as you can see, it's very easy to just come up with a prototype. Like, as you can see with a single prompt agent, right? It also have workflow now, which actually allows you to have more control of the conversation. But also, VAPI is really developer focused. It's very clear API documentation. It has very clear SDK documentation. It stands for Software Development Kit, if you didn't know. It's basically how you can use the application. If you can, I can show you, for example, within VAPI, you have very, very like detailed API docs, like MCP, like SDK docs, etc. So it's very developer focused in terms of how you can use this ecosystem. So I would definitely recommend, like, for developer, if you're a developer, it's very developer friendly, as I probably put in developer experience, very developer friendly with a simple intuitive API, right? In terms of retail, it's really low latency, so it's really best just for a well-rounded general, like, if you just want a voice platform that you want to design those voice agents to be just well-rounded, generally good, I would recommend retail. It's just well-rounded, very general, low latency, and stable. For VoiceFlow, as you saw, it was very, very focused on conversational design. And because within VoiceFlow, you also have the ability to convert between chat agent and voice agent, it gives you that quick flexibility to switch between the different modality and allows you to, build this chat agent, build this voice agent like much more easily and switch between the two. So it's really good if you're basically building an omni-channel agent or multi-channel agents across both voice and text, and the focus is on conversational design. So if you really want to have really complex conversational structure, as you saw, VoiceFlow is the job for that. While the 11 Labs, it has its own text-to-speech model. It's this text-to-speech model provider. It's got the best voice quality, of course. But as you saw, the conversational AI is not quite developed yet. Like, it has its own single prompt agent, but the conversational flow is not quite there yet. But it's definitely one to watch out for in the future. In terms of cost, VAPI is very simple. It's a usage-based pricing. Whereas retail is like a pay as you go, so you need to top up the wallet like after it finishes using all the different credits. You need to top up the wallet again. VoiceFlow is subscription based. You need to pay for different plans for individuals, teams, and enterprises, and it has its own kind of token limit or credit limit, I should say, in terms of how much credits you can use based on different subscription plan. 11 Labs has a free starting point, but it can get expensive at scale. It's pretty expensive. In terms of latency, as I said, like VAPI, it's quite user friendly, right? So it's a quick prototype, but in terms of latency, it's also fast because it's focused on fast turn taking. What that means is that if I talk to you and you talk back to me, like it's it feels natural, right? So that's what VAPI is good at. Retail is, in my opinion, one of the best in terms of latency. At least it's a documentation. It has 600 minimum. It can even go down to 600 milliseconds in terms of latency. So it's really, really good and really, really stable. For VoiceFlow, to be completely honest, it's not the lowest of the latency of the three. Like it's probably the worst one in terms of latency, but it has improved a lot in the recent months for its latency. But as you probably saw in the demo, it's pretty good, but it can be higher. Like it can be higher than the developer focused APIs. But it's getting there. Like it's improving, it's getting there. But also because the conversational structure is more complex, naturally it will have a higher latency if you design the conversational flow to be more complicated, right? So there's some kind of trade-off in there as well. For 11 Labs, it's got low latency as well because they're using their own speech-to-text and text-to-speech models. That's probably why. In terms of the conversational quality, then VAPI is good. With a focus on natural turn taking, as you probably saw, it was pretty good. Though the conversational flow could do a little bit more work in terms of the self-looping. For retail, it's got pretty good high quality, good interruption handling, just all around good. That's all I can say. VoiceFlow is solid. It has a lot of focus on structured conversational design. So for complex use cases, VoiceFlow is where it shines because you have all the different control over the conversational flow. You can write JavaScript within each step of the process. You have this prompt set, set steps, etc. You have a lot more control over how you want to design your conversations. For 11 Labs, the version 3, the voice model that you saw is pretty emotive. And if there's one platform where it will first implement its own 11 Labs version 3, the most expressive voice model, it's going to be 11 Labs, right? So because it's its own model provider. So 11 Labs conversational agents may be the first to use 11 Labs version 3 before all these different vendors did. So definitely watch out for 11 Labs. In terms of developer experience, pretty much all of them are like very developer first approach, as you can see. But I would say for VoiceFlow, it's visual first because everything you design is through the canvas, right? Whereas for VAPI Retail, you can do it through you can do it if you read it through the API docs. It's very similar to how you do OpenAI API from a coding perspective in Python. So VoiceFlow is where if you do the development better visually rather than like on coding, then definitely recommend VoiceFlow because it's designed for conversational design rather than like from an engineering perspective. But VoiceFlow also has its own powerful API for like dialogue management, DM API, which stands for Dialogue Management API, if it needs to be. But mostly you would just do the work on the visual canvas. But the rest of the platforms, pretty developer friendly as well. So all in all, it's actually really close to each other. But it has its own good use case. In one word, VAPI is like prototype, good use case, developer focus. Retail, just well-rounded. VoiceFlow, conversational design. 11 Labs, thing to watch out for in the future. So yeah, that's like a summary of the 4 different platforms. And before I go, just to want to give a little bit more details as well, is that these are closed source platforms, right? You don't really know you don't have the code like of the whole application that it works. That's why it's closed source. But there are open source solutions to build these voice agents. You can have your own, because remember, like I said earlier, the 3 components, the transcribers, speech to text, text to speech model, and the LLM, right? LLM, you can just choose whatever way. But like for text to speech, you can use something like Corky. You can definitely test it out. It has its own GitHub repository. And SSD, which is speech to text, the transcriber, try OpenAI Whisper. It's pretty good, like for an open source like library. If a conversational AI framework, I'll recommend something like Rasa, if you want to go to open source. And the advantage of using your own self-hosted open source solution is that it has a high degree of customization, right? You know exactly what's going to happen within the orchestration layer without something like a black box like VAPI. Data privacy. If your client is really concerned about how you pass on data, we definitely recommend your open source solution, and you can control your costs a little bit better. So guys, thank you very much for staying. If you're watching this video, you must have learned a lot of knowledge there. There's a lot of information I just thrown you. Definitely replay, rewatch it, whatever you want. But I would then highly recommend you, give your hands dirty, actually read through the docs, develop the docs, try to get your hands dirty building these prototypes for your different use cases. But hopefully I've done a semi-good job in actually explaining or introducing how to build voice AI agents to you if it's your first time. Highly recommend you to dig deep into it. It's such a good industry right now to get into. But yeah, it's been a pleasure, and comment below. Are there any specific topics you want me to dive deep into? More than happy to do that. But yeah, that's it for me today. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.